Hello everybody, welcome back to Building Blocks. It's been a little bit of a while, but nonetheless, we are back. I had some terrible sleep issues the past 2 weeks, so we haven't really been able to do anything, but oh boy. Okay, so, when last we were here, we were working on mold, if memory serves, and boy howdy have things gotten so much further than just mold. So if you didn't watch the most recent Bears Oddity Showcase video, we went from mold, we then went to tendril generation, which was just basically tree roots, essentially didn't do very much, very smart. And then we got to procedural. And procedural is by far the most complex of the three so far, but it's also probably the most successful. So to give you a look at exactly how successful it has been, let's hop into our world here. We want Hive 3, I believe. I've renamed a bunch of things recently, so I'm not 100% certain which one's which. But I think this is the one. Okay, so there's a hive that's been generated that I actually just more or less keep around just because I like the way it looks. It looks neat, it looks tidy, looks pretty sweet to me. And it's hard-coded on how many chunks away they can be from the core now, so they're not actually able to go any further than this, which is also intended to be the range that the core will actually chunk load, so it only loads the areas it'll actually be building in. That's pretty sweet. And there's a few things, one or two things, that I need to still figure out to get them to work properly. This one obviously is an older version, so it's still got a few bugs in it. So if we take our, they're currently called the Feywild Rift, because this is meant to be the general one. Oop, there you are. I actually started using ender pearls around here, because it actually takes so long to get anything anywhere. And I just want to make sure I don't accidentally wonk into that one, I think that's far enough. So here we go, we get to watch this one actually generate. Which is pretty nice to watch. Now you'll notice, unlike the other one, firstly, this is actually on the ground, so that's a first change. There's another one, which is that this one isn't going to generate any parts that point downwards, because it is too low in the world to actually have a decent foundation on it, which is pretty nice. Bugs in the hive make sense. You're not wrong, but not the kind of bugs I wanted. So it is currently generating, and it is trying to get, I believe, probably in the region of about 3 hatcheries, which are these ones. You'll notice also the hatcheries and the storages are huge compared to the actual individual pieces that these corridors are being made from. And that is because this has been swapped over from just a generic component piece over to now a system using actual axis and bounding boxes and such, so it can generate variable size components. So that means that we can have very big hatcheries in very twisty-turny kind of corridors here, which is pretty nice. And it's up to 4... Oh, nope, still going, apparently. So it's up to 4 hatcheries, so it's presumably not hit its part count, but that seems unlikely given the size of it. But yeah, as you can see, it's actually able to generate the big hatcheries and then work its way around them, so it doesn't collide with them. Very nice to see.
Well, just have to do this then, and also be month, oh yeah.
Nice! Thank you very much, Espa! Always good to have you. There was a very entertaining moment when I realized, one of the things I kept seeing was whenever a vertical column would generate, it would be like 20-odd blocks tall. And I figured, oh, I'm just like blinking over where it's generating more columns on top of it. No, it turns out I accidentally set their height to 25. So it was generating massive pillars for no reason. Because of course these are still procedural, so they're, oh well, these components are procedural, those ones are structure files, so they were just building up the entire length of the bounding box they were given. And I think it's done now. Seems to have stopped, as near as I can tell. Yeah, look at that. What a nice little hive. Actually, I'm not sure we could call this one little, honestly. Now this is mostly the right scale. This is actually most of the right scale. Obviously, these components aren't going to look anything like that. They'll actually be tunnels and such. But this is most of the right scale that a surface hive should actually look like. Hey, Dark Roll. So consequently, you'll head back to like the wilds where you progressed your witch pact, and then you'll find one of these things has just built itself there entirely, and you'll have many decisions to make there, like how much fire do you bring when you're coming into one of these things. But it is pretty nice, Oh, bee month, that's what that means. Well, happy birthday, Esper. I wasn't entirely certain. I don't think I understood that. Don't think that's 4? Oh no, I mean the placement of these is still random. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 it ended up with. Let's see, what was it actually aiming for? Height equals 4 and 411 parts. That's why it got that high. So it's a pretty complicated one, this one. But yeah, this is, at this point, this generator is actually more intelligent than the generator that Minecraft uses for building nether fortresses and strongholds. Like, give that a think. That's how complicated this thing is. But it's also very heavily fine-tuned, and it can do so much. And I love seeing this thing work. It's so beautiful to see. But yeah, give me an idea and a special interest, and I will go very hard. Very hard. Now, in fairness to Minecraft, Minecraft uses pretty much structure files for everything, whereas this is using structure files for some things, and other things are going to be procedural, because the procedural gives it a degree where it's generating the same stuff over and over, but each piece can look distinct. So no two corridors, even if they're the exact same shape, should look alike in this kind of structure, because it's organic. It's meant to be a bit more varied than that. Minecraft only ever does like manufactured kind of structures, so strongholds and the like. But anyways, there's that. But that is not what we are dealing with tonight. Tonight we are dealing with something altogether different, because I described that as being the surface, or even like potentially the underground generator, and it works well enough for that. But there is every possibility that a player will progress their witch pact inside of their base, because let's face it, that happens with every single mod pack. Eventually, you get to a late game point, you pick up a new mod, and then you go through like 15 different steps to go from 0 to 100 inside of like just your storage area. That happens. I know it happens. I've done that myself on more than one occasion. So we need to account for the possibility that a hive will be generated inside of a player's base, which means we need a system that will generate a hive without utterly devastating the terrain around it, and also bearing in mind that it's enclosed. The underground hive structure just accounts for it by allowing it to tend to like tunnel bore through terrain. That's the only thing that an underground hive changes from a surface hive. So we need to try and get a different system, and to that end, we're going full xenomorph on this, and we're going to start with having a layer that just spreads out and covers the interior of your base. We've done that already kind of with mold, except that the mold procedural is exceedingly slow. Our tests were running at 10,000 random tick speed, the standard is 3, so there was basically no chance anybody was ever going to see an actual like fully completed hive in that regard. That's why we eventually resorted to having the Thailand just rapidly construct it and then just let it add in the finishing details. So, feels like you swallowed a fist-sized rock. Oh dear. Which is worse, a fist-sized rock or a rock-sized fist? Okay, but anyways, I tidied up a little bit around here, so a few things are more where they should be. So I need a hive creep, and I need, let's see, tile entity rift interior. And there's the other tile entities I've got. I've removed most of the other ones. We've just got procedural in at the moment, but the tile entities are still there if I want to use them later. Depends what kind of rock you're talking about. The Blarney Stone has that. If anybody knows what the Blarney Stone is. But okay. So, for this particular rift to work and generate an actual hive inside of a building, we have a few requirements. I have to spread the hive creep rapidly, tracking all of the creep blocks it places. Then we need to use, we have to do that with a static function that we can use both in the Talenti whilst it's generating, as well as inside of the creep block itself, so the creep block itself is capable of spreading without supervision by the rift. Then we need to generate a heat map of the areas that are enclosed by the creep, that is to say the areas of most interest. And then we need to assign room types to the hotspots on that heat map, and then apply room-specific decor, because having it just be one material makes it very, very dull. And the way that xenomorph hives tend to generate is that there's a layer of resin on top of the majority of the interior structure, and then there's structures inside of that resin as well, and it makes the whole place look like it was intentionally set up as opposed to just it spread out, which it functionally did from a major kind of point of view, but bleh. The Blarney Stone, it is in fact, it's Irish, I want to say. It's either Irish or Scottish, and I can never remember which. Apologies to anyone who's Irish or Scottish. But okay. So, first, I have already made the creep. Like, that's already something we have over here. I've gotten all of the, like, values in here to make it look nice and do stuff, and be significant when we see it spreading and whatnot. So let's have a quick look at that. But yes, Pura is correct. I believe that is a spelling of Blarney, as far as I recall anyways. It is Irish. Okay, there we go. A block of Carboniferous limestone built into the battlements of Blarney Castle, Blarney, about 8 kilometers from Cork, Ireland. Now, of course, this doesn't have, like, a special texture, but it does have at least a texture and a model and whatnot, so we'll at least have something nice to look at while we're working on this. So here's our tests. We've got this little space, which is our first initial testing area, and then there's this over here, which is a lovely little boat that I have thrown together. It's not dreadfully complicated, but it has most of the amenities that you would expect to find inside of just a small base at the very least. Rooms of varying sizes and contents, a little bit of redstone, because of course there's a little bit of redstone, it's me making it. Nothing, like, no storage or anything in here. So this is our level up. When we can get it to go through that little setup on the side there, this will be like the point where we try and see, can it take over a base? That is our question. Because it's going to need to go it's going to need to go, like, up edges, it's going to need to go through doors, all over all sorts of things here. Quick thing I put together, Lang says, building a base more functional when I build my shrine. You know, I knew somebody would say that whilst I was building it. How did I do the crafting table? Very simple, really. Mind you, this is like 112, so don't necessarily be certain this is going to work here. Just pressure plates, redstone, and then just one sticky piston. Right there. That's all it needs. It's not, like, pretty, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's functional, and that's what it needs to be. So that is a decent test case for an actual base. Am I try that? That's slick. I mean, it's not that impressive on the sheer grounds that you can use crafting tables from the top anyways. They don't need to be sticking out. So. Bleh. But anyways, so here is our test, and here is our creep. So this is special stuff. Currently doesn't do much, but it is dynamic. It is able to recognize what sides it should be covering, that kind of thing. Pretty nice, and it's nice and high contrast and such that we're able to actually identify where it's going and whatnot, so we'll be able to see as it spreads through to here and such. Looks like Void. It will not look like Void when we're done with it, but we will not be done with it tonight, most probably. So okay, step 1. Get the rift to actually spread like the creep at all. Lang makes Vanta Black in Minecraft. I probably could, actually. That's relatively, like, straightforward in video games and such. You just program something to render as pure black. I've already programmed something to be a missing texture. That's actually not that hard. Okay. So let's start with, like, just step 1 here. We're going to need a list of places to check. Let's call it spread positions, I guess. Or spread places. Or just spread list. That'll do. Call it the spread list. Okay, and on start, we want to add to that list all of our neighboring blocks. So enum facing side, enum facing horizontals, because we're just dealing with the... We've only got a 2D shape right now. So from the horizontals, spread list dot add get pos dot offset side. So that gets all of our horizontal sides. Next step, scan through all of those and put creep on any ones that it could stay there. So that would be for block position pos in spread list. So if vo blocks dot hive creep dot we probably need a reference to it. Begging eyes from the void lion. I mean, this will just be one potential hive. Like this is one of the more important ones, but nonetheless, there's like plenty of other places that could potentially have a material that looks like void. The Spear of Annihilation, for instance, which is probably getting implemented at some point. Let's just create ourselves a boolean to tap into the creep hive like function here. So return block hive creep. Could I make? I wonder if I could just make it a static over here. Can block stays in here. I probably could make that a static actually. Okay, no complaints there, good. So if block hive creep dot can block stay get worlds at that position vo blocks dot hive creep dot default state. Then let's see, get worlds set block state at that position hive creep's default state, and then we would actually want to add a list of different things at different positions next to that position that will actually create ourselves the actual like tendrils spreading out, that kind of thing. But let's just make sure that that part works. Imagine you walk into a hive and there's just a hole straight to the void. I mean, the changelings are... they're factional, so they're not really meant to be necessarily 100% hostile to everybody. Like, whoever is, like, finishing up the patron pact that gets them to actually, like, generate hives is probably going to have a starting relationship with changelings that's pretty high. Everybody else, neutral to worse. And it will entirely possible... It will be entirely possible to become an actual enemy of the changelings. Like, that part's a no-brainer right there. And it is quite a windy storm outside. Jeez. Okay. So if we place our interior rift here, what we should see is some hive turn up. Good starts. Good starts. That is, however, all that's happened. So, now we need to expound upon that some more. We also need to moderate our spread list so that we remove anything that we actually have covered. So we need another list of block positions. Filled pos equals new array list. And in theory, we want to actually do that regardless. So if we don't manage to put it there, we also want to get rid of it. So that would be spread list dot remove the filled positions. So once we've gotten that, our next question is to add the horizontals of that position. So we just continue to spread outwards. So if spread list dot is empty, just set ourselves to so get pos here creep. Yeah. So while not spread list dot is empty, just repeat that loop. So that should mean that either we hit an infinite loop and everything goes horrifying, or we fill up the entire thing. This will be entirely on placing. This is not how we want to do this. We actually want to have a relatively rapid progression, but not quite that rapid. Like, if you think of some of the bases I've built, there have been some pretty, like, vast complexes. The ravine town inside of the Undermine series, for instance, was an actual ravine, which therefore has a lot of surface area. So if we try to cover that entire thing, plus presumably also the cave system and network connecting to it, then that could be really bad. That would be an unendable task. So we don't really want to do that. Okay. So, let's see what errors we find with this. Now, I can only travel to... We already seem to have a problem here. Interesting. Server has stopped due to an error. Ticking block, apparently. But... Oh, concurrent modification exception. There is a problem. Ah, yes, I see. Okay, right. So remember when I said we need to add the spread lists, well, the fulfilled positions to know which ones to lose? We also need to do that for the ones we're adding. Because if we try to add to this, we're already iterating over it, so it can end up wonky. Yeah, that's true of a lot of things I do. There. That should solve that problem. So we have one that's all the pieces we've checked out, and we have one that's all the pieces that we need to check next. theoretically, we're going through this and then we're just, we're essentially emptying the spread list every single time. Again, not what we'll be doing, but the evening is young. Well, we are apparently getting there. I will say this is taking a while. This feels like it's already loaded up the tile entity and it's currently advancing into the distance. So let's add in a limiter here. So if position, let's get us our position, the rift's position dot distance to pos.getx, pos.get and pos.get is greater than, let's say, 64, then don't do anything. So that gives us a hard distance limit on this one. Does it make any sense to buy a 20-ounce bottle of soda for $2 instead of a 1.25-liter bottle? I don't know the conversions between 20 ounces and 1.25 liters, so apologies there, Perry. You might want to standardize that a bit, and then your answer will probably be like right there. Okay, is it gonna freeze up again now? Okay, we may have to go nuclear on this just to get the world loading again. Answer is no, it isn't worth it. Well, now that you have the measurement, yeah. Okay. We have now nuked all of the interior rifts from the from this world now, so it should hopefully be able to load. We're about to see a vast sea of hive creep, aren't we? It was Hive 3 we were using, wasn't it? No, it was Hive 2. It was Hive 2, right. I was like, hang on, is this the order I was last in? There we go. So yep, it's detected those. And it managed to place, apparently, a single piece of creep. Which is fine. So now we go back, reinstate it, and now we'll be able to place it without it being an infinite loop again. But okay, let's state this. Let's phase this. So, switch, phase, case 2, we initialize with that. Case 1 is when we go through this loop. And if spread list is empty, case minus minus. So it's now a state engine, which is a neat little bit of computer engineering, but anyways. So int blocks placed. Let's give it a cap of 80. That's technically blocks checked, but don't worry about it too much. Okay, so spread list is only asked once in there. Good. Yep, right. Found the 34 pages of HTML info textbook that you wrote. Oh god. I still don't know why. Okay. So now this has no possibility of continuing endlessly. That's very clear here. Granted, it's still potentially placing 80 blocks per tick, but shouldn't be too bad. Hey, slime. Reaction, it's just, why? I've literally seen, like, people make jokes about handwriting out illuminated code, like like monks, basically. Oi. Just why? Why would you do this? Makes no sense to me. Okay, well, there's the rift again. So we get our interior rift. And let's see how she does. She has a loop again, is what happens. But I don't see where that could be happening, is the interesting thing. Interesting. Why, how even is this producing a loop? That is the question here. Like, this is incapable of continuing endlessly. I guess because it's going for the entire spread list every time, maybe? Even then. Well. Let's make this a little bit more limited. Okay, good. So that shouldn't be any unintended function there. And because we're now doing it that way, we actually can just straight up add spread list because we're not iterating over the spread list now. Except we are asking it right there. There is that. to the health bar? Yeah, that's the bus bar. Stream bus. Okay, let's see if this works again. We've got breaks in the right places, we've got phase negative negatives. We have an end state. This shouldn't be capable of infinity, but it has so far, for some reason. Who is stream boss? It is currently Wolfram, I believe. But, yeah, as Pura says, donations, bits, subscriptions, follows, and all such gradually tip away at this. And if Wolfram ever turns up, and donates again, then gets, ostensibly, it usually gets health put up. Oh, we seem to be in luck. Seems to be loading. Okay, that's progress. Okay, interesting, interesting.
Player has joined the game.
Phantom! Hey, how you doing? It's interesting that it only does that far. I wonder why. I wonder how it does that. Or rather, why it does that. Doesn't make much sense. Like, why only get that much? Okay, well, let's add a little bit more clarity to this, shall we? So if next position contains neighbor, or our spread list contains it, so if neither of them contain it, then add it. So that means we avoid cases where we just add things we already have to check. Does he have cold? Oh dear. Poor Dusty. So we take out all the things we've checked and add all the new things. And that should mean that we keep going for it. Let's reduce this down to, say, 4 for right now. So every tick over, it can only place as a max of 4. Just put that on the other end. If you're curious why that's actually significant, if you put minus minus before something, then it's calculated before the value is referenced. If you put it afterwards, then it's calculated afterwards. So at the time when this condition is checked, this is still, say, at 4, afterwards it'll be at 3. It's just a little sequencing thing. Oh wait, of course I made this. Handy for cleaning what will most undoubtedly be very large patches of creep down the road here. I wonder. don't know if this will crash it, but... let's just, do that and see if that's maybe why it was going strange. Actually, we might be able to get away here with also just going to that. Because we're not iterating over it, so it should be fine. Can we pop? Is there a thing we can do? No. Push and pop are two different things. Pop in this case would give you the value whilst removing it, which would be handy for us right here. I don't know if this will crash it, but it's just me using cheats in video games. That's just most things in Minecraft, honestly. In my experience, especially in modded servers. Most things in modded servers are, I don't know if this will crash it, but let's try anyways. So that should hopefully iterate all the way over. And we'll also remove the need for next boss and field boss. Let's see how we do. I don't know if this Pegasi will crash the server, but yeah. I don't know how many crashes those Pegasi have caused. Eternal mood. Right there. And before we crash... no. Okay. But... we're still getting this exact same pattern. Interesting. Why is that? Like, what could be causing that exactly? Oh, I wonder. Let me just open up a tile entity. Say, mold, why not? I wonder if it's that. Because this greatly resembles it going through the list and then being prematurely cut off. So I wonder if it's the problem that's activating on the client side as well. And the client doesn't have the data. Let's find out. I've got that code in every other one of these rifts, so it might be. Dusty needs knife chick scent. I mean, I don't have that emote on Twitch. I'm not even sure I would legally be allowed to. But if they have that inside the Discord. You've crashed Bethesda games at least 10 times, well that's just Bethesda? Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Need to break that, but nonetheless it caused an interesting look. Interesting. What is going on with this? I'll be very curious to find out exactly what's going on with this here. So it wasn't that it was triggering on this client side there. It doesn't want to creep. Yeah, seems that way, doesn't it? It almost feels like it's using the wrong position, maybe? Oh, I wonder if it's the most ridiculously simple thing in the world. Ah, okay, hang on. We need a function here. So can place at spread pos get world. If I'm right, I'm gonna be a little bit angry at myself. Because I think I know what it is. And it is the silliest little thing. Thinking of Creeper World? Creeper World was a fun game. Very simple mechanics, but boundless gameplay. It was very interesting. Mr. Colwyn asking someone if they wanted to go eat? No. Although, hey, here's an idea. Creeper hives. Imagine that. Yeah, there we go. So the thing that I hadn't done there, at exactly this line, was ask if the block we were checking was occupied. So when it was going through the list, it went through this side and this side, and then by the time it got past this side and this side, it realized the next thing to check was itself. So it was replacing itself early on in the loop. But hey, progress! We have managed to fill this out. So that is our start. That is our horizontal read. So we come into here now. Here is our next step. We need to try and fill the entire rest of this building. We can level up our progression now. Just clean that up. But okay. So, what time are we here? We are about 30 seconds away. Okay, so I'll catch you at 10 past the hour after my break so that I don't stare at code for 3 hours straight. Go get yourselves a snack. Right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a nice little break there. So, just before we actually managed to head off there, we had managed to actually get our hive to actually spread, because we've the very silly bug that was I didn't tell it not to replace itself or anything else for that matter. So, yeah, there was that. But with that, we are now actually able to completely fill our test bed, so that's grand. And now we need to add a little bit more intelligence to this. So currently it's only checking the horizontal angles. If we checked the verticals as well, we can start climbing up walls and such. But we are still incapable of actually escaping that test bed. Nonetheless, let's just change that to values, because now we can actually do different values, which is pretty nice. Yeah.
UWU.
Oh, thank you for that, Dusty. It really helps, especially when you're looking after me. Okay, let's add a couple more functions here. So public, void, add neighbors to spread. And then we call that same thing here. Thinks your boss needs a boot? Possibly, yes. Oh, there. Okay. There you go, Dusty. Congrats. Alright. Now what we can do after that is we can also add a little bit more detail to this. So currently we're just creating a whole big list that's not necessarily all the things that are actually what we're after. So we want to constrain this a little bit. So can place at neighbor world in, I guess? I don't currently have a world in here. Want to know if you understand what I meant by HTML textbook. Yeah, I can see that now. So now it will actually only add things that could place at. Now, we'll keep that value there because there's a good chance that it will actually, that the conditions will change by the time it gets to actually checking that position. And let me see, what else do we need? What we need to do basically is constrain this whole thing to an actual function. So we want to basically create a function called spread. Sounds list. Gave up cursive after the first line? Yeah, I don't blame you. So then there's this part. We need to get the nearest rift to the given spread position. I should really just make a generic tile entity rift, shouldn't I? Okay, tile the rift interior, get nearest rift. Okay, right, let's start. So now we need to go through the list of loaded tile entities in that world and try and find the closest one. That should be double. So we need to get distance to that position. Okay, yeah, that's good. So if tile instance of tile entity rift interior and dist is lower than closest rift. Well, distance is lower than yeah. Dist is lower than distance. And distance equals dist, and the closest rift equals tile entity or rift interior tile. Find an infinite food exploit in Flight Rising. I have no idea how that game works, so I understand it's about hatching dragons that look really pretty. That's the extent of my knowledge. Okay, so then we say spread list dot add all, spread creep, spread position, get world. And that means we can get rid of all that. So we remove the one that we've just checked and we add all the things from it. So that just returns a list of neighbors that are valid for it. And that means that we in fact now happen to have a function that we can give to the actual block. So now the rift is using the exact same spreading mechanics as the actual block, which means that if it is just left to its own devices, it'll spread anyways. We don't currently have that functioning because our test tool is for purposes of the testing at this exact moment, is currently working on my brain's gone dead. Is currently working on the presumption of tick speed is turned off, so we're just seeing what the tile is doing. But we can turn that back on for a hot minute and see how this goes. Now, it's occurred to me there might be a problem with this idea. I'm pretty sure I know what it is already. We'll find out in a hot second. I did turn that off, good. I'm expecting this will do absolutely nothing. And I'm correct. Okay. And I know why as well. Because spread creep at currently doesn't actually change anything. So, for enum facing this, enum facing dot values. There. Now it should actually be able to do that properly. Let's actually give this a list. So let's see, that would be spread position, world in, neighbors. Okay. So now it'll actually go through and notice its different paths. Night, Dusty. Have good sleep. 12 minutes? What, since I came back from break? What? Time flies when you're making code. Okay, now it should actually be able to spread on its own, using the exact same calculations as the Rift. Which now essentially just means that the Rift is doing it in fast forwards. So that's 10 times, 100 times, and it is entirely capable of finding its way around. Whoop. And it's very nearly escaped there. Fortunately, I don't think there's any way for me to actually make this go down, so it's not escaping this little pool here. Cleaning service. Okay. So, next step. Every time you hear the clicking sounds... Is that the clicking you're hearing the camera shutter? Yes, every 25 minutes or so, my camera reboots itself. It's to do with the camera's specific software is why it does that. I have yet to find a way around it. I think it would require some expensive software. So, yeah. I think instead of going through all of them, we probably should just ask it for a random one, rather than all of these. So, let's see what we can do about that. So now, when it's spreading itself, then I'll just do the one random. Okay. Next thing I want to do is actually sort the spread list a bit more. If it's expensive, I won't put you on it. Yeah, I mean, to actually, like, improve that, I would need a lot more than I currently make. So dist sort. case the teeth marks are easy enough to buff out of the wheel. Oh. Hardy har. I went over this before. Procedural rifts. They have something that does this. Is it static? Nope, that's why. There. Do I have to carry much anymore? Yeah. Dave's busy with their own stuff a lot of the time, but yes. Okay, so we've got our spread list, which is our list of places to check on the next spread. What we also need is a list of all the places that we have spread to. So we need a list of block positions. Call it hive blocks, I guess. And then everywhere that we actually place our stuff, we need to actually make sure we actually add that place. Now, the trouble with that, spread creep. Would we need to have Lang and Dave do something together again? It would. Dave is doing a lot of stuff with their own side of things, and I'm doing a lot of stuff with my own side of things, and the two things don't really collide very often anymore. Dave doesn't do much in streaming or YouTubing. If rift does not equal null, then rift.add hive block spreadless. Okay. So now, even when the blocks actually like check themselves, when they actually try and spread out, they will also notify the rift, so the rift has a decently constant idea of what blocks are where. We can use that data much later for some very interesting things. But first, let's see if we can't figure out how to spread our stuff here. Because currently we're limited to the 4 cardinal directions, and that's limiting on the basis of we can't go through doors, we can't go upstairs, that kind of thing. So we want to create ourselves a static list of directions we can spread in. So there's our standard list of cardinal directions. And now, instead of directly referencing enum facing, we're just going to reference our spread vectors. Okay. So let's start with just the horizontal diagonals here. That should be easy enough. Let's see, -1, -1, 1 and 1. Trying to think, is that all of them? Easy way to check. Make a square. So let's see, we have there's the basic ones that we already had. Okay, so 1 and -1 we do not have. Oh, this is gonna get confusing for me. So there should be a grand total of 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Good. Phew. What's salt? The most delectable of spices. Okay, so I can now move diagonally. Still can't move straight up, but can now move diagonally. So now both the block and the tile entity are using the same algorithm, so the behaviors should be identical no matter how we do this. Yep, that worked nicely, and because we're now centering it and sorting by distance, it's actually rippling out in the same at the same speed all around it. The fact that we get rid of the tile entity at the end is just convenience more than anything else. So it's still growing a lot slower without the tile entity, but it is nonetheless working with the tile entity. Can't tell if he really believes or if he's joking. Who knows? Like, the theoretical ideal here is that this should actually grow completely outside of this. That's our first step into getting over to that. Okay, good. It's a lot slower, but it's doing the same job. We want these to be identical in function, so that when the tile is controlling the creep, it just looks like a really fast creep. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly change this to a list. Just to save me a spot of time here. Auto-generate the whole thing, essentially. And now it should be entirely capable of escaping. It still has the hard-written limit of 64 blocks from the rift. Unless it's the block and it doesn't actually know where the rift is, in which case it can go forever. We will probably be curbing its spreading capabilities in that case. So let me see, it should now have 26. I think, possible positions it can move to from one particular block. So this could get wild. Now, of course, it's still only allowed to place 4 blocks at a time, so... But yeah, we can really see now that it's sorting by the closest, which is why it's going in that nice circle. But of course, it still doesn't recognize doors and such, so if it still treats basically any block it can't replace as being impassable. we need to fix that. It needs to be able to go through doors, because doors are going to be the obvious thing it's going to run into in the middle of a building. We can, like, forget about windows maybe, but doors it needs to know about. That is nice to watch, actually. It's just a nice little circle. Just continuing out on its way. Giving off death particles. Mind you, I told it the max range was 64, so this could take a while. And step 2, check the creep itself. There she goes. Just consuming everything. But not crucially destroying anything, which is important for this, because it's going to be inside people's bases. We don't want to wreck them. We want to inconvenience them, but not destroy them. Especially if they did this, like, almost purely by accident, just by starting it late game. You don't want to lose your entire late game base to creep. This, by the way, is just a command that's replacing all creep in the region with air. Yeah. That's what happens when it's not constrained by the tile entity. You tab out for 3 seconds? Oh, what happened, Marsh? That's so cool. That's not even the, like, the cool part yet. Like, if I place that in the building, it can go up the walls and over the ceiling. And then it does cool stuff, once it's done that. Now, there is a question here of we'll need to alert the rift when a piece of creep gets broken so it can add the neighbors to its list. But it's probably fine for right now, anyways. He came back to massive circle. I don't know if I necessarily said that was a circle, but it was definitely massive. Okay. So we're tracking all the creep blocks, we're spreading it rapidly, we're using a static function so that the block can use it as well. Now we need to generate a heat map of areas enclosed. Oh boy. Now, a heat map is generally used to measure points of significance, as it were. Points with significant value. So, let me see, if I bring up... Yeah, that's a decent enough example. So here we have a heat map that is based on... I'm not 100% certain, I'm going to say somewhere in the region of based on altitude. So the higher the area, the redder it is, the lower the area, the bluer it is. What we need is to know which areas have the most exposure to air. The areas that have the most open volume. And that's a little hard to gauge, but we can probably... Well, first thing we need to check is this area exposed to air? In which case we don't want to build anything there because it's an exposed area. Another thing we need to check is basically if it's enclosed by hive, by the creep, and it's gonna be quite tricky, suffice to say, to figure out exactly how much this is. Now, I'm trying to think, what's a great way of doing this? As a reminder, it has to stay inside this value here, so we need to know. Or alternatively, we can just check, I guess? What do? Because we need a discrete value. That's the start here. Okay, let's retrieve that list. Because that will tell us whether the spread was successful, because it will only return a value otherwise. Making you wish you'd been around for Midnight Goo. I mean, that's a good game, honestly. I really enjoyed it. Although it is a little bit of a downside, because I was trying to find, like, examples of grey goo that, like, created actual structures. Grey goo being a science fiction concept of a nanite-based material or of a such substance that just consumes all matter in its path. So every time I tried to look for grey goo animation or something, I ended up finding results from the grey goo game. Which wasn't quite what I was looking for. There we go, that'll give us at least some degree of a start here. So this will just give us a readout of how much air is directly above it. I did not code that correctly. But that is a decent altitude, so that's good to know. There. Don't think it'll have taken effect already. Now it should be able to spread for the majority of the interior, or at least that first initial chamber. So we'll give it a run there and see how it does. This, of course, is a feature that the lock creep won't be able to do. So there we have that. And if we step outside, we'll see that it's actually escaped already. Oh dear. Alright, because it has diagonals. But we can also see this, which is a start. So this is the beginnings of a heat map. Obviously we need to add in a check here for can we see the sky? If the answer is yes, then don't bother checking the heat map. So because it can go through diagonals, it managed to escape through the roof there, I think. What was that? 29. Bedtime for Marsh? Okay. Night-night, Marsh. Okay. So, we need to we've given it the capacity to go basically almost anywhere, so now we need to give it the capacity to not do that. What exactly is the creep for? What it's going to do is basically provide us a substrate, a foundation layer over the entire interior of your base. And from there, we can then use it functionally as a map. So we know what areas we can go to, what areas we can use, what's available, that kind of thing. But to do that, we need to actually have a cohesive measure of what's going on inside of the creep. But the creep itself is basically just meant to be our foundation layer over whatever is in the base. Okay, so now it won't actually check the entirety of the world. So we should get better view here. Apparently, it did not listen. It's actually no, it is listening. It's spreading out, but of course, it's the heat map itself is providing coverage to it. So we need to actually prevent it from spreading into the outside like that. trying to think here. Is there a way that we can actually let it go diagonally if there's an intervening position to it? I'm not sure. Like, it needs to go diagonally in order to go over top. If math.abs x plus math.abs z equals 2 and y equals 0, continue. So if those two together aren't null and the y equals 0, then skip those as well. Which means it can't go diagonally on a stop, it needs to go diagonally from there. Actually, that's not necessarily going to work either, is it? I guess this is where I actually start adding the things manually, isn't it? Did we grow up but won't come near for pets or such? Oh, perfect. Okay, so that gets us the horizontals. Now I think we need the horizontals plus negative x and y. Negatives negative and positive y. There. So it can go diagonally, but only when it's going vertically. Which will still allow it to actually climb over, but not go everywhere. Ish. Okay. And we need to tell it that it can't spread in a place where it can see the sky. Hey Cam, oh I did, sorry. Hey Cam, how you doing? Apologies for that, folks, I did not realize I was still there. Okay, so cannot see, as long as it can't see the sky, it can place a block, it can place itself there. It can also replace only air, leaf blocks, or replaceable blocks like grass, tall grass. And the spread vectors now only include all of the horizontals plus and minus a step. So it can go diagonally in horizontals, but it can't go straight that way. Again, ideally we'd want to actually make sure we have some meaningful check there, but for right now, all good. Sticks? It doesn't need sticks. Okay, we'll check how this looks, and then we'll go to sticks. Just one little test. Just one more before bed, you know. Okay. Well, it did breach into the onto the roof there, but It has at least provided us a little bit more view there, so that is definitely contained. Good. More so than before anyways. It's only displaying itself up here. Maybe if I change that to actually use just like stained glass, it'll give me a better idea. Anyways, it starts back in like 10, everybody.
Player has joined the game.
Okay, welcome back everyone to our last hour of the evening, and we have definitely made supercharged mold, I can tell you that much, but it needs a little bit more constraining, I think. And we are currently trying to use it to generate a heat map, so that we can actually identify areas where we can put stuff, essentially. Now that's a little bit of a difficult concept, because we need to actually generate a check of how much space there is, and most commonly, that's going to be in one specific zone, and most commonly, that's ideally just going to be enclosed areas. We do need to check to find out. And there's every chance that we just, like, the creep wraps around something in the middle that then cuts off our check of how much space there is. So we need to be able to actually identify various areas like that. Basically, we need a good model of what's going on. But I think I've made some tweaks so we can now actually see what's going on with the heat map as we are currently attempting to generate it. And I can probably add in a few more checks later on to properly constrain how the, like, creep is being spread. For right now, it's all good. Nope, nope. There, thank you. Don't need you, don't need you, don't need you, don't need you. So that's a bit more useful. So that is all of the walls, that is the ceiling, that is the roof right there as well. That is the map that we have been asking for, including the ceiling, including the floor, and the brighter the color-ish, the more we can say is actually, like, above it. So pretty nice. White, I believe, indicates nothing, which means ceiling. So that's a start. That gives us a means of knowing, like, how much air is in that particular region. So from that, we can start to generate points by doing a scan of vicinity, which area has the highest densities, that kind of things, and then we'll have an idea of different rooms. Let's continue this now by actually just getting a track of, like, just trying to get it to understand it can go through doors, essentially. And let me just set that, so I can get rid of that. So that's our next job in the final hour of the evening, is make it understand it can go through doors. So in the case of that, we need to say spread at, and we need to check if the block at that position is an instance of door. In which case we also need to spread there. So we need to actually ask can place at, or let's see, world in.get block state at neighbor.get block instance of block door. Won't it then escape through the front door? No, because it now knows it needs to not be in direct, like, view of the sky. It can still spread for entire cave systems, but it shouldn't be able to spread through that. An alternative here is, instead of using that, we can just ask if it's a full cube. Like, if it's a full block, if it's not a full block, then that should count for doors as well. Let's find out. So either we can place a block there, or it's a block that we can actually just use as reference. I think that's still gonna have some issues because of the fact that we only actually, like, check after that if we can place there. But we'll see how that goes. Goes Plunking, you just stumble across an entire cave system taken over by this. Oh yeah. Like the wild creep, the creep that doesn't have a near enough rift, will spread infinitely, but very, very slowly. The rift-controlled creep, on the other hand, spreads very quickly, but only out to 64 blocks. can see it hasn't... Yeah, I thought as much. That is because of how we are telling it, like, when to actually check that stuff. Reminds you of the taint. A little bit, a little bit. Okay, that should now allow it to go through doorways. Technically speaking, it should be able to go through an infinite number of doorways, which is a weird little interesting part there. But I think we should be good here. We actually only wanted to add it to our rift if it places it, so let's do that. Okay, so that should be good. Let's actually... Where did I put it? Yeah, this. So add hive block. There. That's once again collating things where they're neat and tidy. A non-lethal taint. Most taints are non-lethal. So the idea here now is it should be able to go through doors, as well as fences, as well as fence gates. I think even glass panes to some extent. So we'll see how well this goes. Well, that's a start. Oh, it's in an endless loop, possibly. Yeah, something's up here. Because I'm pretty sure that shouldn't be moving so slowly. Just going to create ourselves a little color chart here so we actually know how far things go. Like, what is the order? would be nice if these were in any order, but Minecraft doesn't do that. Okay, so there's our there's our measuring bar, as it were. If I plunk you over here, are you gonna do any better? Nope. Okay, there's clearly something up. Question being, what? Yeah, that should be fine. Maybe it was just like all impulse. Not sure. Your stomach was just very rude and growled. Have you tried eating? Okay, right. Let's see if that fixes it. Nope, still having issues it seems. So it wasn't that was the problem. So I wonder what's going on. Did I hack up the spread vectors, I wonder? No, those should be fine. Oh, yes, I did. Or did I? No, I didn't. Yeah, that's... should be fine. I'm gonna down to 32, by the way, just while we're here. Well, let's boot it up and it'll give us that list. We'll definitely know him when we see him. It'll be a very big, long list. About 12 items, I think. Okay. Those all look fine. Oh, it is spreading here. Just wasn't spreading before. Yep, it's spreading quite happily here. So why does that not want to work? The only explanation I can think of is that we're not properly adding it to the lists. Like, it's placing those because they're added up here, but they're not actually adding the other ones. Genuinely not certain what I've apparently broken here. If it was running out of positions, then it would just be saying that like it should turn into a figure. If it was running out of positions, it would remove itself. So there's that. Let's just do that so that we don't end up with any duplicates. Can I say it's being a creep? No, quite the opposite. Clearly quite the opposite. Yeah, it's spreading back to there, so it is doing that much. Okay. It'd be nice if I could, essentially waterlog, I guess we call it creep log blocks, but that's done by special data values in the block states in 1.14, so to do that here, we'd have to actually be rendering over top of them, and that could get very strange indeed. Would look interesting though. Like a creep logged pressure plate, for instance, would be nearly, if not entirely, invisible. It is doing that much. Oh, hey. That's pressure plate right there. So that's good. That means it's figured that out, at least. Hasn't gone any further than that. But it's figured that out. Why is it not going any further, I wonder? As long as it's not empty, you do that. Yeah. Okay. Let's get some diagnostic going here. I wonder if it's spreading into itself. But then that doesn't explain why it wouldn't be spreading any further than where it is now. We had it going so nicely, and then I broke it. Ah. Like, if it's spreading back into itself, the distance sorter will pick the closest ones. So that'd make a degree of sense. No, there's like 30 positions remaining here. But they're all the same positions. Yeah, that should ensure we only get new ones. So I think that's what was happening, was it was getting an infinite loop. So because the pieces were finding ways to get to, I think mostly that piece of hive on top, it was just constantly in a loop of adding those positions. Now it shouldn't do that. We'll see. Something looking cute up here, that's for sure. Okay, we're up to 40 now. I need to tell it to not be checking blocks that are already occupied by hive. There, so can it make sure it can't see the sky, make sure it's not a block of hive creep there already, and then all the other things. And that should then make sure it doesn't actually get into loops. Is full blocked. Did I tell this that it's not a full block? This full cube, did I bet me it's full block? So it's just satisfying noise. Still getting stuck. It's still clearly getting into loops. My question is, how do we fix that? But it is going back and forth, that's what's happening now. So if it's not Hive there and it's not a full block, then stop that, in short. If it is Hive, then that part breaks, and then we shouldn't be able to place anything there because I had to make sure it's not Hive there already. So now there shouldn't be a way that it can just keep trying to place over itself. Not quite sure how I managed to break it that badly so easily, but apparently I did. Let's see if I fixed it, next question. Nope. What are we doing that's creating this problem? It's like it's stuck inside of something. Hang on. Let's see, 918, 1685. Which is this block here, I think. Which is mid-air. I wonder if that's the problem. Can plays that checks for if it's an air block though, doesn't it? So that's the problem. So what I think is happening is that air blocks are being used as spread from positions, so it's ending up in a condition where it's trying to use mid-air as a spreading position. I think. At least I think that's what's happening. So either it's air, or at least replaceable, and we can place it there, or it's not hive, but it's something else that we can use. Is air classified as a full block? There's a sentence I never I've wondered. Opaque, full cube, it is not a full cube. So that probably still qualifies air. Okay, let's simplify this for the moment. So either we can place it there or it's a door. That's our only qualifications now. That will hopefully fix it. Make sure to take good care of your air, Shempit. Yeah, I think you're thinking of something else there, Burra. Yeah. These headphones unfortunately have a break in the wire somewhere up there, which is a little hard to fix, unfortunately. But no, I don't use the lights that often. Well, we still have issues, it seems. Let's just backtrack a little bit here. And say... that we just want to... we can do that, and that. And that. So we can place there, and it can stay there, then add the neighbors. Okay, that will remove our capacity to go through doors, but it might at least start working again. What's the desired results? Basically, we want this thin layer of black material to be coating the entire interior of the building, which we had working about an hour ago, and I managed to break it at some point. And then from that material coating, we want to derive a heat map, so we can identify different rooms and such, and then put those to various uses depending upon their scalings. But that part's probably going to be next stream, because it's closing in on the end of stream tonight. But somehow, in the course of trying to get this thing to realize it could work through doors, it has broken itself. Oh, and I think it just worked. Yep. Yeah, that did the trick. So, there's the desired results. But it hasn't gone through the doors, which is something that we need it to do, because otherwise it just gets one room. And here is the makings of our heat map there, or at least the start of one. So those colors directly correspond to metadata values of color in concrete, which are demonstrated from 0 to 15 here. So we can actually identify how much empty space is above each piece here. But of course it is missing pieces and it doesn't understand doors, so it hasn't gotten the entirety of this structure. But it's a start, at the very least. It is a start. And if I'm actually in the building when we see it, there we go. There it is in function. But okay, so clearly I need to tinker a little bit and get it to A, realize when it can and cannot go through diagonals, so that it doesn't get through to the roof like that, and B, I need to also make it understand doors, which is probably going to require an actual handler to interrogate the block states and the world around it and see where it possibly could go in a bit more intelligent of a fashion. Probably not quite as programmatically, but we can try. We can try. But that will take significantly longer than I have for the stream tonight. So I hope you've all enjoyed for the time being. Oop, I missed a piece. I missed a piece. We did at least manage to get a bunch done, and if I'm correct in thinking this shouldn't actually... Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere here, because it is now fully exposed to the sky, which it does not want to be. And I plunk this in here. We can see that the creep block itself has the exact same spread pattern, barring that it's a lot more random than the than what the tile entity does. Which means that once the tile entity is gone, the creep itself will handle stuff quite happily. But we need to make sure it doesn't do anything else. But anyways, that's all I have for you all tonight, so hope you've all enjoyed. My next stream will be Thursday night at 9 PM, where I'll be doing some Monster Hunter World, hopefully with a new Iceborne DLC, depends on when it drops, exactly. Then on Friday night we have some Dead by Daylight, and on Saturday at 7 we have some Dungeons & Dragons, followed by some random games with patrons and such, and we'll be back for more coding on Tuesday. Meanwhile, I do make videos over youtube.com/remembercomic, it's in the header. And everything I do is powered by people like you at Patreon at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed. Catch you all as ever. And next time.